Good morning. Thank you for joining us on Chai Time, where we explore conversations that inspire healthier, happier, and more meaningful lives. For those who are joining us for the first time, welcome to the Chai Time family. In a world that often glorifies being busy, many of us find ourselves running empty, putting everyone else's needs before our own. But what if self-care wasn't a luxury or an occasional treat? What if it becomes a way of life? Today, I'm delighted to welcome Alejandra Posada to Chai Time for a conversation on self-care and holistic wellness. Alejandra joins us to share her insights on nurturing the mind, body, and soul, creating sustainable wellness habits, managing stress, and finding balance in our everyday lives. So without further ado, let's welcome Alejandra. Good morning.
Good morning, Liz.
How are you?
Doing well.
So good to see you.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Yes, I'm excited for this hour. There's so much to cover, so much to talk about, and really dive deeper into what self-care is, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So often we think of self-care, oh, it has to be this big thing. It's going off for an expensive spa day. But really, self-care can look so different. And
Correct.
It is about how we build that in intentionally into our daily lives.
Yeah, I'm excited. So before we, get the ball rolling on a whole lot of questions and our conversation, let's begin with telling us, letting us listeners know a little bit about you.
Well, thank you, Lynn. So I'm Alejandra Posada, and I work with Rupani Development Initiatives as the Director of Mental Health and Holistic Well-Being. My background is in nonprofits. I've worked for educational organizations, social services, and then for the last decade and a half in the public health space with a particular emphasis on mental health. I joined Rupani Development Initiatives, I guess it's been about 8 months now, in the beginning of last November, and work in collaboration with our sister organizations. I believe you've had guests on from Rupani Foundation
Yes.
USA and even Sina Foundation. So really working collaboratively with them around the areas of promoting mental health, promoting that holistic wellness.
Okay. So can you elaborate a little bit more about Rupani Development Initiatives?
Absolutely. So Rupani Development Initiatives, as I said, it's one of three sister organizations with the same founder and chairman of the board, Mr. Nazurin Rupani. He also does work abroad. And Rupani Development Initiatives have been working for a number of years abroad in Pakistan and Afghanistan and in that area of the world. But really just recently, within the past few months, has begun work here in Houston to really complement what Rupani Foundation USA and even Sina Foundation do. Rupani Foundation USA does on-the-ground work, particularly around early childhood and maternal mental health, working day to day with kids and with parents, with mothers primarily, with parents and their children, with child care providers. And of course, even Sina Foundation is a really comprehensive healthcare clinic. So RDI's role is really to look, rather than doing that direct service work, to look at more from a system level, look at potential policy opportunities, look at how can we change the systems to reinforce health, mental health, holistic well-being, with a focus, including especially thinking about families.
Okay. So tell me what inspired your journey into wellness and self-care.
Yeah, thank you. It's been it's kind of been a winding journey. So I was a teacher. First,
Okay.
It was my first career, the first phase of my career. Coming out of college, I did a master's in education, and I actually worked in Montessori settings for several years, and adore kids, I worked with adolescents, and I adore adolescents, which I know a lot of people like, what?
Yeah.
But realized that being a classroom teacher was not the long-term career for me. But through that process saw, how much of a difference it makes in terms of a family's orientation towards wellness. And some of the tools that I'm aware of now, I think back and I'm like, wow, I wish I'd had that as a teacher, both for myself and for my students' well-being. So when I left teaching, I knew I wanted to stay in the service professions and nonprofits, and went into program management, and then kind of serendipitously came into a mental health setting. I'm not a clinician. Okay. I don't have that clinical background, but came into more from an education and advocacy perspective, came into that setting, and then really found that was my niche, working from a public health perspective to promote access to mental health services, to integrated healthcare where mental health is addressed in sync with the rest of our bodies, because so often we think about it separately, but we know that our brain and our body are intricately connected, and so much of self-care and holistic wellness is about that too, about thinking about my whole self and what I need. And then, as I said, I'm continuing that journey with the Refining Development Initiatives for the past few months. I'm thrilled to be here to chat with you.
That's wonderful.
And our guests.
So, can you define what holistic wellness is?
Yeah, that's a great question. A good place to start always with the definitions. So I would, thinking about holistic wellness is thinking about ourselves as a whole person. So often, as I said, our medical systems, just our society treats all of us as series and almost putting different parts of us in silos. So we have, this is your physical health. If you go here for that, and if there's some mental health needs, you go here for that, and then your work, that's that's separate and so forth. But all of that makes us who we are. All of that and so much more makes us who we are. So holistic wellness is really thinking about all of that. So certainly the things that we think about that come to mind first with wellness, our physical wellness, going back to the basics, sleep and our nutrition, and exercise, our mental wellness. And I always really like to stress to people that mental health and mental wellness is not just about treating mental illness. That's certainly an important thing, but all mental health, mental wellness is something for all of us, right? We all experience stress. At times we all have difficult periods in our lives. So diagnosis or not, managing, acknowledging, and caring for our emotional health. But then to go further and say, when we can look at holistic well-being, we can also look at things like our financial wellness, our occupational wellness, our social wellness, our spiritual wellness. We could be doing, and these things ebb and flow, and we could be doing, your career could be on fire and just doing great, but at the same time feeling like the relationships in your life are suffering, or what spirituality, in whatever way makes sense for you, is lacking. And so kind of finding those pieces in the way that works for us. And it's going to be different for every person.
Correct.
But ensuring that we're looking at ourselves as really whole beings, as you said earlier, mind, body, and spirit.
Correct. Yes. And going back to my personal journey, I've always been a working mom, right? And then when I moved to Houston, we have a restaurant. So then I started, working in the restaurant, working alongside my sister, and running the business alongside her. And my kids are grown. I'm an empty nester. So all of that, and a lot of people sometimes look at me and say, well, you have a business, you're an empty nester, and you basically have it all, right? That's how they look at me. And I'm like, no, I always found a piece of something missing in my life, right? It's like trying to find a purpose. And I just felt like, no, I feel, I don't know what it is. I'm just trying to pinpoint, right? You always find a little bit of emptiness inside. And I really could not explain that. And eventually something just happened that I don't know if I just happened to be browsing on social media or whatever, and I realized that maybe it's all about the holistic wellness of it, right? Of how to live life with a meaning, having a meaningful life, living with purpose. And that's my journey. Like right now, I am a health and life coach. So I kind of found my path, and I'm just so grateful that I kind of didn't talk myself out of it. I went and I got my certification, and now I'm coaching, and I feel my life like fulfillment. And I feel like, I am making a difference. Yes, I am very community driven. I do a lot. I involve myself in the community. I try and spend time with people around me or at nonprofits, like Chai Time, for instance. We support all the nonprofits. We provide this platform for them to come to share their expertise and to be kind of like a connection, right? To connect our community with nonprofits in whichever form they need, right? So
absolutely. I love hearing your journey, and especially that piece about
yes.
finding that fulfillment and finding that serving the community also was part of caring for yourself. Because
yes.
I think sometimes I like to use the term community care as well.
Right.
And self-care and community care, I think they're often two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
Sometimes we neglect ourselves,
yes.
as parents, especially. Actually, I'm not a mother, but I'm very close to my nephews and certainly see my friends and my brother and sister-in-law and so forth in terms of all that the family life takes. So sometimes we need to give more care to ourselves, but sometimes part of that is also how do we give to the community, and then we see that it feeds us.
Correct.
It's a reciprocal relationship, not tit for tat, but that if we are giving, it comes back. I have found a lot of purpose and meaning, certainly through my professional work, but also I'm very involved in my church, and I work with the adolescents there. So even though teaching was not the long-term profession for me, I have found a way to be around, to be with young people,
yes.
helping them to learn to live those values of compassion and social justice, and that's part of my soul care. It feeds my soul. It may not look like self-care, but it's part of what feeds me in terms of that that spiritual fulfillment. So I always think it's two sides of a coin, caring for ourselves and caring for the community, and how those interweave.
Yes.
With each other.
Yeah.
You mentioned, when you mentioned you were a mom, though, I wanted to, if it's okay to give a shout out to a colleague of mine. Her name is Dr. McLean Sampson, and she's a professor at the University of Houston College of Social Work, Graduate College of Social Work. But she has recently published a book called Savage Self-Care, really geared towards mothers or others who have felt like they have, had to give so much of themselves into relationships that they have perhaps lost some of themselves. I know she recently launched the book, and so I think if you had the opportunity, she'd be a great guest on your show
that would be wonderful. Yeah, I would love to have her. Yeah, definitely, I would. I think a lot of us need that. And what you just said earlier is that we give so much to everyone, right? And then we just don't prioritize ourselves. We always put ourselves in the back burner. We'll say, oh, for me later. And that later, never comes, right? And then one day you just hit rock bottom, and then you're like, what am I doing? Where am I? I'm just down in this hole, right? And I'm just sinking. And that's when you really, I have seen people that get so deep down there that then you get into depression and all anxiety, all of those things, which I think it's so important that to kind of, it's not being selfish, first of all, prioritize yourself, prioritize your happiness.
Absolutely.
Right? Don't feel that guilt and shame
Absolutely. And ultimately, when you are, it's the old saying, but you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Yes.
You pour into yourself, and then you are able to have more that you can pour into, whether it's your family, your community, and so forth. If you when you get to that rock bottom, it doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't. But yeah, along the way, it can be it can be challenging, and we tend to put it to the back of our minds later. I'll do this later. I'll take care of myself later.
Yes.
But the more that we can build that in, even in simple ways, into our, I think, as you said at the beginning, as part of our way of life, I think the more we can be there for ourselves, but also for those we love and for our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier we said a little bit touched a little bit about self-care. Self-care is not only about spa and massages, and I mean, that's nothing wrong, but how would you define true self-care?
So I like to think about self-care as anything that advances our holistic well-being, and it can look so different from person to person and even from day to day. I think sometimes the simplest way to think about it is, what do I need right now? And is it the basics? Am I not getting enough sleep? Am I not getting enough hydration? Am I is my body stiff? Do I need to move my body? And then just looking further, okay, what do I need? And sometimes it's self-care. Sometimes it's I need connection. I need to connect. Sometimes it's I need to be alone. It varies. Whatever sort of our person in all of its aspects needs at that moment, and it can look so different. I also like to remind people that self-care and self-indulgence are not the same, which doesn't mean that a little bit of self-indulgence can't also be self-care. Sometimes we need a piece of chocolate cake or something, but a chocolate cake every day, that isn't working, feeding our, giving our bodies the nutrition it needs, is probably not self-care. So kind of finding that balance. Sometimes self-care can be things we enjoy greatly, like a massage, but sometimes it's things that don't feel great at that moment either, like getting that exercise routine in place, and taking care of our bodies, and being mindful that we get enough sleep, being mindful of our nutrition.
Yes.
So sometimes self-care is about comfort, but sometimes it might be even about making ourselves a little bit uncomfortable in order to be able to move towards our goals, whether that's for our physical health, putting ourselves in a new social situation, learning something new, finding, as you were talking about, finding our path, finding that meaning. Sometimes that requires some discomfort for a little while. So sort of balancing all of that and thinking, what is it that I need today? Is today a day when I just really need the comfort of some soup, some chicken soup, and just cuddled up in a blanket, or is right now when I need something like to push myself a little bit and find, learn something new, discover something that may open up for me.
Right, yeah. It's a balance, basically.
Absolutely.
You got to find that kind of a balance in your life where self-care is concerned.
Absolutely.
So that's important. I wanted to share the story. Recently, I was having coffee with a friend, and she asked me this question. So I met her through a group. It's more a business group. So basically, you are networking, you're trying to promote your business. And I met her over there, and so she asked me this question. She's like, so I recently joined another group, which is a social group. It's nothing to do with your business. You don't promote your business. You just talk about yourself. It's all about you. Whether you're a mom, whether you're working, you're entrepreneur, whatever, but you don't talk about nothing about your kids, your family, you just talk about yourself. So she asked me this question. She's like, you are so social. Why did you need to join the club? Like, I'm just curious. Why did you join the club? And I said to her, I do a lot of networking. I do go out and I love meeting people. I love talking to people. But those group of people is more business related. So I don't have that connection. I mean, sometimes I do, but for within that hour, when you're given an hour, 2 hours, how much can you? I mean, you're focused on promoting your business, so you don't think about yourself. But this group is all about you, so it really makes a huge difference. So that is what, like, and then she's like, "Wow, I didn't even realize that."
That
it's
reminds
just,
me so much. I mentioned my church, and I go to Unitarian Universalist Church, any kind of community like this. One of the things I've loved there is normally, in daily life, when I meet someone new, the first thing I know about them is what they do for work. Right? Because especially if I'm meeting them within a professional setting, or even within networking settings, we ask, "Oh, what do you do? Here's my business card."
Yes.
And at church, one of the things to meet people as people, and then maybe a few months along, I discover, oh, so and so has a PhD in biochemistry, and I didn't know that, or so sort of it allows us to, being in those sorts of settings like that social group you're describing, or a church, allows us to connect to more of who we are. Remember that our profession, what we do for a living, it may be something that's important to us, but it is not us.
Correct.
And we are more than that. We are beyond, and there are wonderful layers to us, and being able to appreciate those in ourselves and in other people.
Right. And when I went for my first meeting, what I learned was so many people are so lonely. It's the loneliness that really affects them. Whether you've moved from another country, another city, you moved here, you just want connection. You want to create friendships. You want to have I want to have friends. And it just dawned on me, like, we are so busy with our lives, we don't even realize till when we sit and have a few minutes of quiet time, that's when we realize, I'm lonely.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And I think in our modern society, with so much access to social media and seeing all the time, that's exacerbated because we see curated versions of other people's lives.
Yeah.
Right. We look on Facebook or Instagram or wherever it may be, and people mostly aren't posting those difficult moments. They're posting the parties they went to. They're posting the award they got, and so it can look to us like, oh, look, everybody's
life is perfect.
Life is perfect. Everybody has it figured out. Everybody, they've got, but except me. So I think it comparison is always dangerous, and social media and that just ready access to that makes it difficult. It makes it so much easier to compare. Yes. But at the same time, I think social media can also, used properly and with intentionality, it can also fill a role if you kind of curate that. It can be a way to connect. I know I've connected with a dear friend from high school whom we had just lost touch over the years, and through that and a couple of other people that just had lost touch with over the years, and been able to really connect in a really meaningful way because I found them on social media, and then we reconnected. But so just being really intentional about that, and remembering that what you're seeing is what somebody else is choosing to show you about their lives. So we all it's the whole thing. Everybody you meet is facing walking a mountain or facing a challenge we know nothing about.
Correct.
Remembering that, I think also for me helps to sort of put in perspective. It's just part of the human experience, and what do I need at this moment to help me work through that, and then what can I offer when I'm able to, when my cup is full for others. Yeah.
It's like we don't know anyone's story, right? Just because we see it on social media doesn't mean that we know that person, exactly. Right? We don't know what that person's struggles are, challenges are. So, it's there's like everything, right? The ups and downs of social media.
Absolutely. It can be a tool for self-care used with intention.
Right.
But it can also drag us down.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we got to take a short break, but when we return, we'll continue this amazing conversation. This is Chai Time, 103.5 Hum FM. Welcome back to Chai Time on 103.5 Hum FM. And today we are talking about self-care and holistic wellness with Alejandra. And it's been so fascinating and it's been wonderful. So we were talking about self-care, right? And I always wonder, why do people struggle to prioritize themselves?
That's a really good question, and probably one of those that one could peel back a lot of layers of the onion on that. I think part of it is has to do with our societal expectations, and especially as women. And very often, whether those are explicit messages or kind of subtle messages that we are given, that part of our responsibility is to take care of our family, take care of our children, and then today, as you mentioned earlier, just being a working person and also having a family to take care of, or aspects, and feeling like it has to be perfect. And when everything has to be perfect, what falls to the bottom is perhaps those things that would feed me, whether that's physically, emotionally, spiritually. So I think a part of it is our lives are objectively hectic, with all the responsibilities, with many people working more than one job, commuting long distances, working long hours, caring for a family. But I also think it's part of how we have been conditioned. We've talked a little bit about that feeling of guilt, or like, oh, this is indulgence, or this is a luxury. I don't deserve this. But we all deserve to be well. We all deserve to work towards our wellness. And I think one way that certainly helps me, and I am not at all perfect either in taking care of, it's a continual journey as well for me, but is to think about the fact that I do value what I can give to the community, whether that's my family, my church community, my broader my professional community, our broader community in our city, and so forth, and reminding myself that I can't do that. I can't live out that value if I'm so drained that I just don't have anything left to give. So I think because we are conditioned so often to think about caring for others and to think that caring for ourselves is indulgent, sometimes putting that little spin on it can help us recognize that, yes, I'm doing this for me, but it's also going to help me live out, if that's something important to us, it's going to help me live out my values of contributing, of caring for my family, of contributing to the community, because I will have whether that the fortitude, whether that's physical, spiritual, etc., to be able to do that.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about stress. Can you kind of tell us the difference between good stress, bad stress?
Yeah, it's kind of and of course many of our listeners may have heard this kind of classic response, stress. From an evolutionary perspective that developed because sometimes there is a real threat, and stress is the signal that tells us I need to deal with this somehow, right? I need to. I think the classic example is, the saber-toothed tiger is coming after you. I'm not even sure if not even sure in the historic timeline if that would be accurate. But yes, I need to be able to escape from a physical threat like that. So our bodies were conditioned, through those centuries, millennia of evolution to respond in certain ways. Today in our society, most of the time, for many of us, those sorts of immediate physical threats aren't there. So they certainly are at times. Obviously, there are violent occurrences, and then there are people who are living in very, very difficult situations where those types of threats maybe on a more day-to-day basis. But for you and me and many of us, many of our listeners probably, those things aren't there in the same way, but our bodies are still conditioned or to respond in that way. So something comes up, whether that's a deadline, a confrontation with somebody, and rather than we respond with this excess of stress. So a little bit of stress can be good, right?
Yes.
A little bit of stress is what tells me, I need to get up out of bed. I need to, this project is due. I need to finish it up. I need to give that a little bit of stress can push us.
Yeah.
But when we're responding kind of from that primal place of fear, of trying to threats or to an occurrence that really isn't that sort of threat, our stress can become unhealthy stress. Correct. And when the stress is such that it's not pushing us, helping us, but it's holding us back, that's unhealthy stress. So kind of finding that balance. Are we going to have times when we feel pressure? Yes, that's part of being human. That's part of our lives. But if it's constant and if it's getting in the way of our wellness, whether that's physical, if we feel it constantly in our bodies, it affects our sleep, it affects our digestion, we feel it in headaches or just in different ways in our bodies, or as we talked about a little bit earlier, it leads us into serious, clinical depression or anxiety, or in some cases it just kind of stops us in our tracks and keeps us from doing things, even though the stress is maybe caused by thinking about all these things that we do have to do. Correct. So if it becomes disruptive in our lives that way, that's a signal that I need to look at some ways to address this, because stress isn't going away, and there are some factors that we can have control over in our lives, but there are many that we don't. Correct. But what we do have control over is how we respond. And I always to remind people that not everything requires professional mental health care, but many times seeing a mental health professional can be so helpful, and it doesn't have to be because I have this clinical diagnosis. It can sometimes be all this is going on. I have the stress. I'm not finding ways to deal with it. It's really gone over into the unhealthy stress part, and so seeing somebody, a licensed clinician. I know you've had my friend and colleague Matab Moradi on the show as well. Yes. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, a licensed clinician, psychologist, therapist, what have you. And for those who, there are great resources in our community for those who may need to find that at a lower cost. And that's certainly something that we could share some resources, and the Even Sina Foundation, where Matab works, is certainly one of those places. And then there are also, of course, others with private practices, just depending on one's circumstances, and depending on one's needs. You mentioned you were a life coach as well, so kind of depending on one's needs, think it may be a life coach, or maybe a therapist. They can be offer a different roles, but both can be really helpful. So I think also in many of our cultures, certainly in my Hispanic culture, the idea that sometimes that we've grown up with is that seeking help like that means that we're weak, or we can't handle it or something. And I think it's the opposite. Seeking help means that we have the strength and the courage to try to make our lives better for ourselves and for those around us. It's we all need help sometimes, and being able to reach out for it is a sign of strength, not weakness.
We need to stop labeling.
Absolutely.
Right? That is so important, because once we start labeling things, and that's where we put our guard down, and it's just like, I mean, we put our guard up. So it's just, that's the first thing I think we have to keep in mind. Now, I want you to share some practical tips of how to manage stress.
So I do go back to the basics, and these are hard. I myself have not been doing so great with these lately, but trying to get enough sleep, eat a healthy diet, some exercise, and exercise is actually, I once heard it, like I saw it referred to as like the it's like a magic wand. The effect of exercise, not only on our physical bodies, but on our mental health. The studies, the research about the benefits of exercise for our emotional and mental health is just overwhelming. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. If you are not active right now, and start with a 10-minute, 15-minute walk, or do a little bit of stretching. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. If you have the resources and you'd like to have a personal trainer and use a gym and so forth, that's great. But there are if you just search online these days, there's so many free YouTube and other videos, whether it's stretching, and you can find everything. 20 minutes of stretching, or stretching to relieve tension in my shoulders, or just search. There's so many good resources out there for free that we can do with very little or no cost in our homes, or we can going sometimes even the social. Some people enjoy the social aspect of going to whether that's a yoga class or what have you. So always kind of pointing back to those basics. But then again, I think just taking a moment and saying, okay, what do I need right now? So I did a little experiment. I put on Facebook before the weekend. I put on Facebook a positive use of social media. Hopefully, I said I'm going to be on this podcast on Monday. I'm going to be talking about self-care. What are your self-care tips and resources and so forth? And I'm going to just give you a little sampling of what people told me. Like intentional gratitude, and that's one that I have found really turns things around for me as well.
Right.
When I take the moment, and it doesn't have to be again a huge thing. It can be like, I like keeping a gratitude journal and just writing down one or a few things each evening that I'm grateful for, and it can be something as simple as the sky, the blue of the sky today, the gorgeous color, or it can be something like just a phone, the connection with a friend today. It doesn't have to be just these little things, which it kind of puts us in the habit of noticing and being mindful in our days. Some exercise was mentioned. Somebody mentioned sometimes learning to say no and to ask for what we need, which again, I think especially for many of us as women and in our cultural and family settings, that's not something that we have always been encouraged to do. But learning that no is it's an okay answer, and we can still be compassionate and caring people, even when we say no, that's not something that I can do right now. Social activities. You mentioned your social group, and whether that's and that's different for people too. Sometimes some of us really thrive on social activities, and it gives us energy. Some of us really need more alone time. So kind of gauging, where am I on this? Am I on, do I need some time to myself, or do I need to connect?
Correct.
And usually it's a mix of both over time. The answer is different from day to day. Art or self-expression, in some ways, a lot of it, whether that's something just simple, drawing, painting, writing. For me, music. Does that not? I am not a musician. I think I have so much admiration for people with musical skill, but I had it playing on my car on the way here. I call it's my comfort and hope playlist, and I've just added over time songs that, for whatever reason, I find help me. And they're not always they're not always super uplifting songs. Sometimes there are songs that remind me of the human condition, so that I don't feel so alone, perhaps, in whatever I'm going through. So,
Right.
but it depends, depending on your tastes and so forth. But that's something I really enjoyed, having that curated playlist. So developing that over time. Meditation or mindfulness,
Yeah.
prayer, depending upon one's particular spiritual spiritual beliefs, but that just kind of that time to for sort of silence and focus. And one of the things that I think is most important in all of this is to give ourselves grace. Remember
Yes.
that we're not perfect, and trying to make self-care something that we have to be perfect about is just kind of defeats the purpose. We did what we could today. Maybe we worked in a few minutes of something to take care of ourselves, and then maybe something else earlier in the day. It just but that's okay. We do what we can every day. Every day we're not. We don't have to be perfect, giving ourselves and others grace.
Yeah.
Pets are also, for those who enjoy being with an animal, pets can be a really wonderful way to just have that different kind of connection.
Yes.
And relieve stress. So get creative. Think about what gives me joy. What can I do? Whatever time, and it could be something big, but it could be something small, depending on the time I have, the resources I have, etc. available at this time. How do I feed? Whether that's how do I feed my soul? How do I
Yes.
feed my whole self?
Yes.
And a lot of the time, if we sit back and ask, we know what we need.
Correct.
Sometimes we just sort of have to sit down and let it percolate a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a grounding exercise that I love to share because it's so simple. We can do it anywhere. We can do it at something that we can also do with kids. So
Okay.
you can teach to young children, and they can do it. And I just call it the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1
Yes.
exercise. And it's about being mindful to what's around us. So it's looking and saying, okay, here I am. What are 5 things that I can see? And it can be something really simple. I see the flowers on your dress, etc. What are 4 things that I can touch? Again, really simple. It could be, just hand touching, skin touching the. How does it feel at this table? It feels cool, etc. What are 3 things that I can hear? And it could be something as simple as the breeze going by, or somebody's music in the distance, whatever it may be. What are 2 things you can smell? And again, maybe it's just the air, the freshness, or maybe have you. And what's 1 thing I can taste?
Yeah.
And it's a few minutes to just ground ourselves and practice that mindfulness of experiencing that moment as we are. So that's one that I think is just, if we're just in one of those moments where just like, what do I do right now? I need to just take a moment, do this, and it just kind of helps ground and maybe clear, okay, this is what I need to do next, so forth. Or with our kids also, as a way to help them regulate, their emotions or so forth. Like, let's help them learn. And for kids, it can seem like a fun game, right? Let's look at this, rather than telling them, okay, you have to regulate your emotions. Just like teaching them these habits that can help. It's all about being mindful to what's around us, and then just allow us to be present and say, okay, yes, this is what I need right now.
Right. That's so beautiful. It's amazing. Like, I'm just, I do a lot of these things myself, so I know how it feels being grounded and everything. Just, many times in this Houston heat, it's really unbearable. You can't go out for a walk, but I wait for a later time, and then when I go out, I'm so grateful that I did. I put my mind to it. I went for a short 5-10 minute walk, and it literally changed me, right? And I go home feeling so much calmer, better, and more like just rejuvenated.
Absolutely.
Like I went to a spa.
Absolutely. It's amazing. And sometimes it's like, sometimes it's thinking, oh, yeah, I don't want to go out there. It's muggy,
Right.
etc. So I have a dog. It's part of my
Right.
self-care as well. And so, yeah, taking that little
Yes.
evening walk. And it's, it's 15 or 20 minutes just so she can
Exactly.
take care of her things.
Yeah.
But still, it takes me out of whatever
Right.
I was in, maybe like whether I was working or focused, and just like, just that
Yes.
movement is
Absolutely.
just magical, and it doesn't have to be big. It can
Yeah.
be a short walk like that,
Yeah.
a few stretches, just
Yeah.
something that it kind of makes that little change
Yeah,
in your.
definitely. So any parting words before we wrap up? I can't believe it's an hour already.
Wow. Yeah, me neither. Well,
You got to come back.
I would love to. I actually want to quote one of my friends who answered this on my Facebook. And
Okay.
she is actually a mental health professional herself. She's a licensed clinical social worker, and she said every day is a self-care day, and it's a skill you can develop. So instead of thinking about this as self-care is something I'll do when I get this, and this done.
Yeah.
It's something that we do every day. We can build it in those little parcels and practice over time, and you don't have to tackle it all at once.
Correct.
You don't have to be perfect. Ask yourself one thing you need right now, and then see if that's sitting with a few minutes to breathe, stretching to relieve, doing a few stretches for a
Yes.
few minutes, calling a friend, eating something. Sometimes
Yes.
it's as simple as, I haven't had any water all day.
Right.
Let me have a drink.
Yeah.
And then there are great resources out there too. Great, like if you're a book person,
Yeah.
I'm the type that's like, okay, let me buy a book on
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So there's this is one that
Yeah.
I enjoy.
Just share it out there.
The more or less definitive guide to self-care, and
Yeah.
I like this one because it's in little bits, so it's not
Okay.
like it's like kind of A to Z. Like here's D, ditch the brave face, or doctor. Sometimes it's getting our medical needs taken care of. Doodle, so it's just like in little fun bits, so I don't have to be like, okay, I have to have an hour to sit down and read this. I can just open this up,
it's a guide.
find peace and just be inspired. But there's a lot of, again, good books out there, good resources. We need to use our judgment to weed out and find the quality ones, but do a search and there's a lot of good free resources as well. If you search online, there's even like something I looked at this morning. It was like a kind of comfort wheel or something. Like depending how you're feeling. If I'm angry, here are some things I can do that could help. If I'm feeling frustrated, so look for resources.
Okay.
Ask people what they do. I loved the answers I got to that question. I think that's going to start being like my new icebreaker question for people. What do you do to take care of yourself? And then that way we can build each other up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alejandra, for joining me, sharing practical tips, your wisdom, and everything else. It was a great hour spending with you. Appreciate it. Thank you.